Wow, there's a lot. I'm trained to see through the lights. All right, I'm not going to spend too much time. I just want to remind you that these are some really great professionals tonight. But we have 27 or 30, I can't remember, students who are working with us this week in these last 2 weeks. And they're going to perform their material on Saturday night, a week from tomorrow at 8 o'clock, right here. Come and see these culminations. These are going to be fantastic, right? So I can't do any better than that. So the stage combat lecture demonstration begins now.
Good evening. First of all, my name is Tony Carreiro, and I'm one of the instructors of the Stage Combat Workshop. How many people know Bonanza? Not nearly as bad as I thought. All right. I will try to explain to you why I showed that clip. Many years ago, many years ago, my two older brothers, myself, and my father used to watch that show religiously. For those of you who don't know Bonanza, it ran from 1959 to 1973, over 400 episodes. And I watched a lot of them. And I was the youngest, so I immediately identified with Michael Landon's wonderful character, Little Joe Cartwright. Okay, now, Little Joe would get in a fight almost every week. And I'll remind you, I was very young. I think I must have been showing some concern watching the show all the time. Because when I was putting this show together, I had this flashback of my father getting concerned that I was getting worried for Little Joe's safety because he was getting beaten up all the time. And one day my father said to me, you do know that's a fake fight. And this was a very new concept to me. I would know they're punching each other. I can see it. I can hear it. And my father attempted to explain this, and this dazzled me. Okay, now we jump cut to many years later when my crazy idea was to become an actor, and I was training, and I got to graduate school. And my first classes in graduate school, there was a class called Stage Combat. And somehow this connection was made, and I was enthralled. I remember that. You can fight and make it look real, but it's actually fake, and nobody gets hurt. This sounds awesome to me. And then, of course, slowly in the back of my mind, to see that you might be able to get paid for this. Was awesome, right? So, to my great luck, the person that was teaching our first stage combat fight was a gentleman named David Boucher, who was one of the founding members of this organization called the Society of American Fight Directors. At that time, just beginning. Now, probably the nation's premier organization that dedicates itself to training actors to create and perform what should hopefully be very theatrically exciting, exhilarating, but overall safe fighting. One of the things about stage combat that is connected to television fighting and film fighting, but different, is that we don't get to stop. We don't get to take a second take. We don't get to say cut. We have to do that fight from beginning to end, whatever that fight might be. And we have to do it sometimes, if we're lucky enough, on Broadway or on a regional theater that performs 8 times a week. So this idea of how do you create a fight for an audience that will be thrilling, or at least, propel the story forward in the proper way, and do that every single night without damaging yourself, or even worse, the other actor. Well, this is what the Society of American Fight Directing Stage Combat is all about. And here's an interesting thing. If you look at plays, most plays are about people in crisis, right? Comedy or drama, usually this play is about somebody's very, very important day. Something critical is happening that day. And indeed, in a lot of plays, as you probably know, we reach this place where I have been begging you and pleading you and threatening and cajoling and conniving and bribing, and you still won't give me what I want, so I think I'm going to hit you with a frying pan and take it. Okay? So when that happens, indeed, we have a situation where now the actor has to perform a physical moment of storytelling and do it in such a way that hopefully is exciting, hopefully explains what's going on, really propels the drama forward, or really explodes the comedy in a greater way, but do it in a safe manner, okay? This is what the society is all about. You'll find out with them that what they try to do is they try to teach actors, no matter what type of fight it might be, okay, how to perform these moves, how to get each component of a move. And that's an interesting part, and we'll have someone coming out to talk a little bit more about that. But every move, every strike, every kick, every punch usually has about 3 components. One is a preparation, one is an action, and one is a reaction. Now, if you should be so unfortunate as to be in a real fight, you're really only interested in one thing. Number 2, the action. Okay? You don't want to get hit. All right? In stage, we want you, the audience, to really be concentrating on the preparation and the reaction. We don't want you to see the action because much of the time, there isn't any. Much of the time, it's an illusion, like magicians, right? This whole little gesture when a magician grabs that quarter, puts it up here, and then rolls and puts it up there, it's so that he or she is getting you to look in the wrong place at the moment. And this is one of the things they teach. Now, very fortunate for myself, about 5 years ago, I think it was, the CSU Summer Arts invited my colleague Collin Bressie and I to go to the Summer Arts Festival when it was in Fresno, and put together a workshop on sword fighting, rapier dagger, think Romeo and Juliet, Three Musketeers, things like that. It is often the weapon that you're first going to confront as an actor, because there's so many wonderful classical plays that has it. We had a great time doing it. We had a really good turnout, and we kind of fell in love with Summer Arts, and they haven't hated us too much because they brought us back a couple of times since then. But while we were developing it, Collin and I were talking about, there's more and more need for this kind of work. It's transferred more and more to film. There's been lots of great classical films, and now with Marvel Comics doing so well, there's all sorts of fighting. Woman as warrior has really, really evolved in the last 25 years or so. And now, a lot of times, Hollywood expects, or at least hopes, that men and women both, who are trained to be actors, have some of these skills that they can bring to it. I can tell you right away, it's gotten me jobs. There have been times when there have been equally talented actors fighting for the same role, and because I had this stage combat in my actor bag of tricks, it helped me get that job. So I really became a devotee, and I really loved working this way. I started with in graduate school, and I went on and did more training with the society, and I started choreographing and loved acting, then ultimately started teaching it. The unarmed combat, however, is actually the first thing that an actor is going to most likely confront. Because plays are about crisis, a lot of times, whether it's comic or dramatic, you're going to get anything from a barroom brawl to a domestic violence scene, and it can be anything as small as a push or a shove. But then we get into slaps and kicks and all the way to kill blows and things like that. This moment we realized, I realized that really unarmed combat is something we should also be sharing with CSU Summer Arts. So this is the first summer that we've done this. And we've had a great group. We brought back Aime Root, Collin Bressie, who you'll meet in a few minutes. And we brought someone new with us, Nate Mitchell, who you're also going to meet in a minute, who's our certified teacher working on this. Okay? Probably I thought that weapon work was a more complicated form, because there's a rigid set of moves that you have to learn. learn. There's a historical background that you have to learn. But Nate brought this up the other day, and I think he's right. Unarmed combat is probably the more advanced technique because there's so many different things that the actor has to learn. Again, a hair pull, a choke, a gouge, a kick, punches. They have to look, quite often, they have to look very unorganized or disorganized. They have to look scrappy, slumpy. Well, not quite like those great old cowboy fights. But, so how do you blend that sense of mayhem with strict choreography that will be done over and over again? That's sort of the challenge that we're imposing on our students right here. And, well, you know what? I've been talking long enough. You guys want to see a fight? It won't be me. I have people who do that. I'm glad you said that. So why don't we show you one unarmed fight with Collin Bressie and Aime Root, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, half dead on the floor is Collin Bressie. Battered, beaten, but victorious is Aime Root. Let me share a couple things with you. First of all, they put that fight together in like 2 days. They did it with their own work and with the aid of this new gentleman that we brought with us this time. New to me, and Terry and I met him and talked with him and got to see some of his work, and we are so lucky and so thrilled to bring in and the Society of American Fight Directors Certified Teacher. Please welcome Nate Mitchell. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Nate to sort of deconstruct this. This is kind of really a wild, sloppy sort of fight that they put together, and I just want Nate to talk a little bit about it. He can kind of share with you what the actors worked on, and yeah, just break it down a little bit.
Hello, good evening. My name is Nate. I helped these guys put this fight together. Thinking about this presentation as we prep to come here and work with the students. We wanted to do a dramatic fight and then something fun for you. So this was our version of a dramatic fight as we collaborated over the last couple of days between the classes that we were teaching with the students. So for this, what we were thinking about doing was kind of a simpler choreography and a lot of grappling and then a couple of big hits at the end to try to make it a little sloppier so it didn't look as staged, but everything is repeatable. Every movement on the stage they could do again and again if we put this into a show, 8 times a week. And I'll break down a couple of the principles that we use for you so you can kind of learn a couple of magic tricks and see what some of our students are already doing. This will be pretty familiar to them. Let's start with the end, the last couple of hits. Okay. So as a choreographer, I'm always concerned with creating an illusion So as I work with the actors and we figure out what they're comfortable with, their level of comfort and physical contact, then we can figure out what we want to do. And we always have to keep in mind both choreographer and actor audience perspective. So we want to move the fight in a way that if we know there's going to be a strike, we can mask it and create kind of a little magic trick or illusion. And we want to try and play with your perspective to get you looking, as Tony was saying, at something else so that you're not looking at the thing that we're doing. So with the strikes, we mask them. When you do film fighting, it's a little bit different. They have the camera and they can cut and edit, and they still have to mask their strikes, or they shake the camera, or they move it. But here we have to move our bodies because you guys stay in place. The camera doesn't really move because you're really the camera. The camera lens is also really wide. There's people on both sides, and it covers a large area in this particular theater. Sometimes we work in theaters that are in thrust, so there's people in the wings, and sometimes it's really challenging to create different strikes because it's in the round, so it's very easy to see some of the tricks we're doing. If you stood in the wings, it would be pretty obvious, some of the stuff. I'll show you some really basic stuff, the stuff that you learn initially, and maybe I can talk about or demonstrate an advanced technique that you might use for thrust or in the round. But it's all just misdirection. So, our last strike, right? Yep, the last two. We'll show you the angle that we chose to perform it at, and then we'll show you kind of the cheat angle and explain what is actually happening. So we have simulating a groin grab. Obviously it worked because I heard the reaction, right? We chose to put that, right? I heard you guys. Yes. When we hear that, it's just like, such a relief. Like, all right, they get it. We were clear about our action, and it's clearly working. And so we chose to put that towards the end, and then a couple of hard strikes, and everything else we made more of a struggle and a grappling scenario, which is a little more realistic. Again, this is all illusion, and it's not, this type of fighting really isn't like reality, but we tried to make it as realistic as we could. So from here, they're going to do two strikes. She's going to clear her hand, she's going to throw a back fist across his face, and then she's going to grab him, reorient him, and then she'll throw a knee. Mm-hmm. Then he'll take his fall and she's out, right? Great. So now the cheat angle, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull them down stage, and then we'll just rotate you. So Collin, if you can face stage left for us. So these are what we call non-contact hits. There are contact strikes. You saw one earlier. Up here on stage right, there was a contact elbow from Aime to Collin's stomach, and there's a different technique, which I won't go into right now, on how to make contact strikes, so that you can actually, the audience actually gets to see one part of the body come in contact with the other. Certain surfaces are too dangerous to hit, like the face in many instances. If you're going to do big blows or knockout hits, 8 shows a week, that can be pretty grueling, right? And then your headshot doesn't look right, when you go to the next audition. So we can't really come in contact on a regular basis. So we use these non-contact strikes, and we just orientate the body so that you can't see where the contact is. The only thing we're concerned with, perspective-wise, is that we cross your eye line and the plane of the target. And for this, we chose to use his face as the target, right? But she's going to stay out of distance with her strike. So if you can just show them. Mm-hmm. We're always concerned with the two actors working together, moving together, and connecting to each other. So the more opportunities they have to connect with each other physically and visually, the better. They always want to be working together and communicating with each other. So between the strikes, you notice what we did is we had Collin go off balance. She's going to do the back fist. Boom. Then she can reconnect by grabbing him, putting him where she wants, making sure he doesn't lean forward into the path of the true physical kinetic energy that she's creating in front of his face. Make sure he's in a proper position for the next hit. Another thing that's different from the way film fighting works, if you ever watch a film that you really like and you put it on mute, well, you just had this in the Foley presentation if any of you attended that, right? Right? So you can see how those stripes are added later, and the Foley guys will recognize this when they get the raw footage and what they film, what the swords, a lot of times they're aluminum because they're doing many takes, so they're a lot lighter, and they won't make as good of a sound, or the hits don't make any sound, because they're also sometimes using non-contact strikes. They insert those later on in post-production. For stage, we have to do our post-paste, we have to do our post, right? So we have to create our sounds in different ways. We call it a system of naps when it strikes to the body that are non-contact. The system of naps is just basically our sound effect to simulate a strike to some part of the body. There are different types of naps. There's what we call a self-nap. So if you are the aggressor and you're making a non-contact strike and you're also making a sound, I'm going to demonstrate that real quick, and then I'll show them the two naps that you're doing for this. Can you hold this for a second? All right. I'm just going to yell really loud so you can see. So I'm the aggressor. I'm making the nap. Hopefully everybody can hear me, right? So I'm going to throw the right cross that we just showed our students a couple of days ago, and I'm going to make the sound myself. From the cue. So how this works, here's the cheat angle. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to create a large motion for your eye to follow, a big preparatory. If this was a real fight and you wanted to punch somebody, you would never really punch like this. If it was a real fight, you wouldn't want to indicate that something was about to happen. But you need to anticipate it as an audience member, or it happens too fast. If I'm here and I go, it's hard for you to follow. It's hard for you to follow as an audience because you don't know that it's coming. You know, you don't know when the violence is going to happen. So we have to give you some sort of anticipation, a beginning to the move, a middle to the action, and then an end, right? If I give you a large movement here and a smaller movement with my chest, it's harder for you to find. This is one way to do it. So I give you a large movement here, my hand is set up maybe to fight, and then I just, instead of me bringing this big motion here, you can just see me slapping my chest, it's an obvious technique, I'll just walk my chest towards my hand with a little slap as you're watching this big motion that had already started. If that makes sense, right? That's kind of some of the misdirection that we use. So what we did here is we turned Collin's body so that he can mask a couple of his hits, and we have two different types of strikes that are happening. So we want to try and create two different types of sounds because she uses the back of her fist, and then she uses her knee. So theoretically, and the Foley guys would attest to this, if they have two different strikes like this, they're going to try and create two different sounds, which will actually sound a lot more realistic than what we create, but we have to do the best we can with what we're working with on stage. So if we can create two different sounds, that's optimal. So what we chose to do here is when she does the back fist, Collin is going to nap his chest. It's a smaller sound. It's a little more of kind of a deadened sound. It doesn't have as much of a snap as the knee. And we kind of did a cheat here. I would prefer to flip it normally, but we wanted to end with the loudest sound, the loudest snap to have the greatest impact to end the fight for you so that it builds as the last move of the fight before he gets knocked out. So the knee has a clap nap where he claps, right? So he's timing with her so that when she does the back fist, he's going to hit his chest, and then he's going to clap. Make sense? So that we have a variation. The more we can vary it, the more layers we can put on, the more realistic the illusion feels. We can never really get it to a place of reality, but we're trying to kind of trick the brain or mess with your perspective as much as we can. So that's a little bit about what we do. Kind of a small little bit. But I'm going to put it back to Tony now. And it'd be great if you could talk to them a little bit about how we can change, once you have these general principles of naps, working with your partner, and a few other basic things, you could take this same exact fight and you could make it comedic instead of dramatic. And that has to do more with the performance than the actual techniques of napping. And Tony has a great example for you coming up, so I'm going to pass it on to him.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much. One more round of applause for not too hard for those guys to go for comedy usually. And maybe we'll see a little bit of that later. Yeah, what Nate brought up is once they learn all these moves, once they learn how to execute them and build this fight in a dramatic way, or however the fight's supposed to move through the arc, be safe and all that, then we get to the core of this. One of the things that I think really helped me as an actor was that learning how to act a stage fight is the thing that probably improved my acting more than anything else I did, because now I have this complex series of moves, but they mean nothing if I don't know how to build that fight, how to reveal character, how to show how the story moves forward. You know, when you get to that wonderful moment, Romeo and Juliet, where Mercutio challenges Tybalt to a fight, and all that beautiful language of Shakespeare's, and then we get down to those last two words, one syllable each, it says they fight. And on the other end of that fight, Mercutio is dying, and Romeo goes so blind with rage that he kills his cousin. So that fight has to follow that arc. And that has to be done through the acting. Every move, every blow is a line of dialogue, basically. Now the actor, as Nate was saying, the actor can take that line of dialogue and just change the action and make it funny. All right? Whether it's a slap to the face, the reaction, the setup, if it's done in a different way, turns drama into comedy. I have an old clip from a wonderful piece of work. It's just a filmed piece of a live theater presentation by a physical actor named Bill Irwin, that some of you may know. Bill Irwin is one of my absolute favorite physical actors. He started with the Pickle Family Circus in the late 70s, and he studied everything. He studied clowning techniques, juggling, mask, mime, dance, martial arts, stage combat, and he took this show called The Regard of Flight and put the whole thing together, all of those elements. And while he was doing it, he was making fun of theater. He was breaking down all the trappings of theater. He was breaking the fourth wall. He was running out into the audience and things like that. And in this, there's just like 2 minutes, he does a little stage combat moment. And he does everything beautifully, but he does it wrong. And he does it wrong on purpose. And I want you to take a look at this, and then we'll talk about it real quick. All right? I've watched it many, many times, and I never get bored with it. So obviously, you may have noticed that what he was doing with those slaps in this very comic way was he was doing the naps in front of the audience. Did everybody see him do it? And sometimes, the first time I watched that, I don't think I even noticed, because his acting was so complete, he was so committed to it, and so funny and so over the top, that I forgot that he was doing them right down here when he should have been doing them here. Typically, we would hide the nap. If somebody's going to slap me, I'm going to turn my back to the audience. I'm going to receive the slap, make the nap when they can't see it, and then reveal what happened, and it's going to look like this. Right? So hopefully I hid this, but Bill was doing it right in front of the audience. He was doing it on purpose. He was doing it to make fun of the theater in a certain way, and also to pay homage to all the work that he does. What else made it comic? It's that it's way over the top. The silly music, the fact that he's incorporating dance with fighting and things like that. But it's also the character. This is a sort of, a Charlie Chaplin sort of vaudeville type of character that he was dealing with, and he created a lot of brilliant work that was very, very funny in the middle of it. Collin and Aime, as Nate said, can take that exact fight and turn it into high comedy, turn it into slapstick, turn it into farce. The moves stay the same. The actor's intentions, their storytelling, is what changes. And that's another nice thing about this work. When you learn these techniques, you can apply them to any type, from great tragedy to wild comedy. And that's part of what the society teaches. The students we have here that are learning, one of the things that Nate's trying to share with them is a series of moves that they have to learn if they ever want to take a test, okay? One of the things that the society does is it tests actors all the time to see if they're qualified to get this acknowledgement, that they've been with the society, that they've learned from a certified teacher, and they can execute these moves. This is one of those wonderful things to have on their resume that helps them down the road. But it also really makes them better actors. Collin and Aime, and Nate as well, have studied with the society for many years and have gone to all these different workshops. There's a National Stage Combat Workshop in North Carolina. And much to Collin's chagrin, I found a copy of his test that he did in Unarmed about 7 years ago. Now, Collin is really angry at me because I'm going to show this, and he's become so good. I think his fight is wonderful, but he's required to do a whole series of moves in this fight. He has to put it into a scene, and this is kind of where we're taking our students, so I thought I'd share it with you guys so you can see the culmination of about a 3-week intensive training program that Collin took, where he finished with what they call a skills proficiency test. They pick a scene, they have to learn it, they have to learn the characters, and then they have to create a fight. And not only create a fight, but again, create a fight that has a certain amount of slaps, a certain amount of pushes, a certain amount of kicks, a throw, all of these things. You guys want to see it? Yeah! All right, take a look at this. This is Collin Bressie 7 years ago.
What are you doing here? You lied, kid. You told the cops I swiped your lousy car, and that was the lousy lie, kid. What do you expect me to do? Now you better get out of town. You know what's good for you. I'll go. When I'm ready. You won't. You're going now. Look, Seymour, I don't want to fight you. Now look, Seymour! I don't want to fight you anymore. You're the only friend I've ever had. I'm not a friend anymore. You saw another pretty girl and you just had to have to your list. That's not so!
Collin was one of my first stage combat students at Long Beach City College, where I can teach basically one class. And I saw something in him right away and really urged him to do this, and now he's 10 times better than me. I hate him now. But the students, I've got some of you guys right here, right? There you go. You recognize some of those moves? Yeah, they'll be doing that. They have been doing that. They'll be sharing that with whoever can come visit us Saturday night. One of the things that Nate talked about was the nap, but the other thing about acting the fight, two things that I find really difficult. One is that you've got to get the right sound of pain, right? So yeah, you get slapped, but quite often when you get slapped, there's a noise, right? That goes, ow! Right? Whatever that pain might be, you have to start to figure out, what's it like to get punched in the stomach? Now, we try to avoid actually hurting anyone, so we have to use our actor imagination, watching things and figuring out what kind of pain you're supposed to be receiving when that happens, but also to retain it. This is something you see, I'm sure you've seen it in fights, where there's two tough guys and they're beating the crap out of each other, right? But they don't seem to be suffering. They have this horrible punch, but then they bounce back and they fight another punch. I don't really think that happens. This is what Nate was talking about, trying to create a certain amount of truth. It's always a balance in theater. It's theater, right? It is a dramatic representation of life, but it should have some grounding in truth. So the actors are learning how to make the proper sound, but also to make the proper reaction of effort if they're throwing a punch, of pain if they're receiving a punch, and then retaining, holding on to that so that it looks it looks good. And as you see at the end of that fight, the two characters can barely stand because they've really done some damage to each other. Okay? Let's see here. Okay, let me talk about one more thing. You know, we don't have, well, we've got a little more time. But as I say, when we started with rapier dagger, those are two weapons I absolutely love. I love learning how to do it. You do get to use them a lot in classical scenes, classical plays, but not as much as an unarmed fight. An unarmed fight, I think, is more important for the actor to get a hold of the first time, something that they use more often. It also, but the structure of it is similar to everything else. So what you find out is when you learn one style, and the Society of American Fight Directors teaches 8 different forms of fighting, okay? 7 weapons, and then the unarmed work. And so once you've got one, transferring to the next one, because a lot of the martial comp, the structure is the same, okay? But certainly swords are flashier, you know, and they're a lot of fun to do, and they're a lot of fun to show. They draw an audience in a lot of times. I mean, Shakespeare was no fool. There's reasons why he threw his fights in where he did. You know, the Mercutio table fight is usually at the end of what we would consider our Act 1. And why does he have so many huge broadsword fights like in King Lear in Act 5? Well, he knows, just like you guys know, that after about 2 hours, if there ain't some explosions, we got a problem, right? People are starting to get tired, right? So indeed, Shakespeare would put these massive broadsword fights in the Scottish play or in King Lear, and the actor has to now perform a fight with what may be an 8 or 10-pound broadsword after 2.5 hours of acting. And so this is when danger comes in, right? This is when accidents can happen. This is where the training becomes really, really important. Again, with a sword, a fight can be both dramatic or comedic. The moves can be exactly the same. And for your viewing pleasure, Collin and Aime have decided to put together a quick single sword fight for you. Again, these guys are putting these fights together in like 2 days. So would you like to see one sword fight? So I feel bad because I always make Collin and Aime do the hardest working actors I know are Collin and Aime. I'm always putting them out there. Do another fight. Do another fight. But I don't feel that bad. So here's Collin and Aime one more time with a single sword fight. Ladies and gentlemen, Collin Bressie. Now, real quick, was it the actual sword moves that was funny? No, it's how they played it, right? It's what they did with this fight. I'd love for you guys, no, I should give them a moment to catch their breath, but I won't. I'd love for you guys to talk a little bit about the fight. Talk a little bit about what single sword is, okay? Do you need the microphone?
I'll take it.
All right.
Single sword microphone! Yay!
Sorry guys, who's gonna ruin your mic?
Hi guys! Ooh, the voices in the dark. Great, so this is single sword. It's probably my favorite weapon. If you've seen Princess run through all the shows, there'd be 1 or 2 guys that were always their fighters, and they would have what's called Victorian stock phrases, stock, S-T-O-C-K, and they were just moves that they always did. So if I called cheek cuts, Collin would know, right? They all had names. So when we attempt to do these things, we have stock phrases. So what you saw were some cheek cuts, some bell clangers. See, because it's like a bell and they're clanging. They have Glasgow 8s, which run around in a circle. You've probably seen this a lot, right? And then who's winning depends on who's running forward and who's running backward. Right? Basically, it's whoever's running forward and backward. A lot of these moves went from being stock phrases in Victorian Shakespeare to melding fencing with these moves to become what you see in Princess Bride, The Court Jester, those kinds of movies. I don't really need this. It's fun, but I have a tendency to want to parry with it, and I feel like the tech guys are going to not be happy with it. Anything in my hands is a weapon.
We almost made it.
We have insurance, right? So, anyway, the neat thing about when they took fencing and married it with the Victorian stock phrases is they could use it in film. So, for stage, when you saw us at the beginning do the cheek cuts into what they call the running the hall, because you can do them in a really tight hallway, that was that up and down motion. For stage, we do it this far apart. Right? On film, they have to stay in a little box. So you do it this far apart. Right? And they're like, that looks great! And you feel like, that can't possibly look great. And then you see the footage, and the Foley guys save you. The other neat thing is these are called epee blades, but they're really light, so they move really fast, which is great. They don't always sound the best, except for apparently when Collin does. See, mine doesn't do it.
Yeah, we've never had that happen before.
What a jerk. Upstaging you with your live Foley sword. Right? So you can see where you can transition from classic swashbuckling movies that are uptight like this to big stage fights that are broad and beautiful. So we all see that? Yeah. One of the other things I love about this weapon is that no matter what you do with it, you can always tell a story. So you don't even have to be going clack, clack, clack. If you've ever seen Court Jester, in it, Danny Kaye is fighting Basil Rathbone, and he forgets the choreography, but instead of stopping, hello, I'll be Danny Kaye.
Okay.
My dream. He does that. Yeah, so if you watch the movie, he does that. And it doesn't really matter that they're not fighting. Basil's like, oh, snap. That guy's running at me. And he runs away. And so it's really the person that makes the weapon in this. It's the same in all of them, but this one is really exaggerated. And we're kind of hams, too, so that helps.
No.
Not kind of.
There's probably going to be a question-answer session where you can...
Yeah, I think we're just about going to wrap this part of it up. I really love you to do that. I could go on for hours, I'm sure. But we're getting close to the time to wrap this thing up. But we thought you might want to ask a few questions about this. As I said, we're doing unarmed. We've done the sword work before. There's a lot more that these guys do. So if you want to bring the house lights up a little bit, maybe we get some chairs out. And if you guys have any questions at all about this, wow, there's a lot of you. Feel free to ask. I think they've got a couple of microphones hanging out over there somewhere. We've got someone right here that wants to ask a question. And come on out, Brittany. The Queen will answer anything you like. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to wait and get everybody situated. Yeah.
Very thoughtful.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Hi. So my question is, as an actor, if you haven't taken a stage combat class, if you don't have any training, and miracles, you get the job. What are just some ways to kind of prepare yourself for doing choreography and making it look sort of realistic, making sure that your body is well prepared for it? Because they're doing it, the stage combat, and they're like, oh, it's a lot. So just, yeah, how do you prepare your body for it, and how do you prepare as an actor to make it look realistic?
Well, I'll let these folks here answer that question, but let me preface it by saying I believe this is where the Society of American Fight Directors came from, all right? Really good theater companies were not paying attention to this many years ago and just thinking, yeah, let's just do a sword fight, we can do it. And actors were getting hurt a lot. And so there were a group of people that started thinking, this is not cool. You know, this is not safe. This is not, you know, people are getting hurt, actors are getting hurt, sometimes audience members would get hurt. And these very intelligent people started saying, we've got to put something together to codify this work and to protect actors. But indeed, it's a problem that happens a lot of times, where someone would just say, the director, unfortunately, may not know anything about this, and he just goes, work it out, right? Anybody want to tackle that? Nate?
Sure. As well as teaching this to actors who haven't learned it before, I work as a choreographer in theater, and I work a lot with actors who have had no stage combat experience before. And part of my job as a choreographer is to build choreography that they can do confidently and competently, so that they feel like they can perform with the most confidence. So I'll do kind of a physical diagnosis to make sure they don't, whatever injuries they have, I'm building movement that they're comfortable with. And that's just part of the job of the choreographer, to help that person learn in the rehearsal time that's provided. And it's a negotiation between me to work with the actor, figure out where they're at, what they're able to do, and the director and the producer to get me the time I need in rehearsal to get them up to speed. And whatever time they give me is as good as the fight can be, pretty much. If it's a big show, like a big musical or something like the Spider-Man musical, then they'll be doing something called a fight callback, and they'll bring the actors in and audition ones that already have fight experience. If you have no fight experience and you haven't done a lot of training, usually in professional theater, you'll only be asked to do small amounts of choreography, but they'll still hire you. If it's a big show with sword fighting or things of that nature, that's usually not the case.
This is one thing that I think the society has done really well, is they've worked very hard to educate theater companies, regional theater companies, Shakespeare festivals. Most good companies now know that this is a very, very important part of what happens in a play, and most directors and most artistic directors want to keep their actors safe. But it's okay for the actor to speak up too and say, I'm not sure how to do this, and I'm not sure if it's safe, and could we possibly bring someone in that may know this, and more people are being able to do that. But the society, I think, has really educated theaters to realize that they need competent fight choreographers to do this work, and that it's a necessary and an important part of their expense account now to put together a good play. And you see it every time. When you go to a play that has been well choreographed by a trained choreographer, fight director, it always is better. And as Nate says, he's working specifically to those actors' skill sets. And he's also working specifically within the content of the play. To a certain extent, he's directing that moment of the play. And he'll work, if he's not directing the entire play, he'll work with the director to try to get that arc right. This is the kind of work that these guys do so well.
And also, I also, from the actor's perspective, if I had no stage combat experience, it's the same as any movement acting training, really. I find that if I focus on my core and really strengthening that, it helps with everything in life. And then really start working on getting like a yoga routine that I do every day, even if it's just 25 minutes. It's really helpful at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day.
Thank you.
There's a misconception, I'll just kind of add to that, to learn how to fight for the stage, you should be like a martial artist or something that would benefit you. But really what we're doing here is a different thing. What we're asking the brain and the body to do and what we're creating is different. It's more partnering and a lot more like dance than it is, because we're not working against someone, we're working with someone to create an illusion for the audience. And it's a lot more physical storytelling, like you would, acting with your lines, how you're going to speak, just learning to tell story through motion in your body. Then that. So it's not necessary. Don't be intimidated if you see a fight in a show and you think, well, I don't have any boxing experience or anything like that. It's really not vital. It's not that important.
I'll add one more thing to that.
Which is, be honest, right? When they ask if it's something that you've taken at a weekend workshop and you've had 3 hours of training and they're looking for someone that has to do a big brawl in the middle of the play or the scene requires it, just be honest about it. And like everyone's saying up here, they're always willing to work with you. Any good choreographer, fight director worth their salt will be able to work with an actor with any experience.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Back here?
Hey. So, this is really fascinating and cool. A question would be, would you consider, or is it considered, the performers for, like, WWE, and when they have a 360-degree stage, like you were saying, they perform, would the performers for WWE, would they be considered doing stage combat? And if so, is that a type of genre of stage combat that is taught?
It's real.
I don't want to take that from them. I'm so glad you said that. I personally can only speak to theater because I don't want to ruin the dreams of so many. It's like there's no Santa Claus or something. Who would say that? In the world of stage combat, we work in the round a lot and come up with many illusions to simulate strikes in the round, but I can only speak to that because I've never worked in WWE, so I don't know. I mean,
And many of those wonderful fighters have become actors, and I don't know if that has something to do with it. I also don't want them finding out that we said something and they're fucking us down, because I know some of it's real.
No, but those guys, no, seriously though, some of the physical things that those guys are doing is truly amazing. It's not a joke. It's like professional football.
Fall from the ceiling, free falling.
Yeah, they're doing some very inspiring things actually when I watch them work. Like in all seriousness.
It's real.
Let's get off this question. Any other questions? Oh, back here. You want to grab the mic?
It's not working. Okay, I will project. Hey, I really, really liked that unarmed, and the thing that really stuck out to me was that the backpack and the dragging. So my question is, it was terrifying and so realistic. So my question thus is, how do you do that one to demonstrate? How do you do that one safely? And do you what do you do if that move or any others starts becoming unsafe?
Well, I'll start with the safety element aspect of it. It's, again, like we were talking about, it's about partnering. So if you'll see, much like what we were demonstrating with the single sword, where if we flubbed and messed up, you can come back to it and find a specific spot to start from. So typically a good rule of thumb for us on stage as actors is if something happens, and sometimes it does because it's live theater, go back to the beginning of the phrase different parts of a fight are broken up into phrases. So the first little engagement of that unarmed, if you can break it up however you want. So if a mistake occurs, just recycling back to the beginning of the phrase and starting over. Most of the time, the audience will never know unless you tell them, right? And then if something were to happen and safety was compromised and something can't go on, then you would stop and you'd find a way to end it and move on.
When we rehearsed it, we got the backpack, I laid on the floor, I held on to it, we walked, right? Then we went back, I laid on the floor, I held on to it, we walked a little faster, right? You know, you test it and you check it, you pull on it. It's got a towel in it, and then on the back side of it, it has my shin guards that I wear sometimes for more sound, but otherwise it had a towel in it so that when I did the break fall to the ground, he's not pulling me at all, I'm just falling. So he tells me when to go by pulling gently, listening, and just, you know, giving me an impulse, and then I just freaking go, and he better get out of the way, right? Right? And if, while we're pulling, it gets dangerous for me, I can just slip out. It's really easy, I just slip out, and then we figure out how to get back into it together as a team. Sometimes that means that's the end, and I go, ah, and run off, and he chases me. Right? Sometimes that's how that goes. But we work it in rehearsal, and if at any point during the rehearsal process, I feel uncomfortable, or Collin feels uncomfortable, we revisit the move. And if I still feel uncomfortable, or he still feels uncomfortable, we scrape. We just throw it and do something else. Because it's about telling the story and not about getting a cool move done. Does that make sense?
We did that with all the fights you guys saw up here tonight. That happened. We adjusted and changed stuff over the past 48 hours, going, oh, this is going to work better for us and working that. So it's very flexible. It's not set in stone. That's something that I used to do when I started fight directing. Is like, I want everything set in stone. You need to be prepared, but then you get there and you don't know who necessarily you're working with, and it's a living, breathing thing. Hopefully, it's always something you can change and work on.
And we call it victim control in our fights, where like when Collin's choking me, he's not actually choking me. I'm taking his arm and putting it to me. And so if at any point I am in a weird spot, or it's hurting my neck, or he's coming up on my chin, right, I just move his hand. Right, I'm the one that's in control the whole time. When I'm pulling on Collin, when I'm doing anything, if he wants to be done, he can just break away. We're not actually controlling each other, we're dancing. It's just a really violent dance.
That's right. And also that drag you're initially talking about as well, when I'm dragging her, I'm using her momentum that's generated from her falling backwards and taking herself to the ground. I use that momentum she's pushing off the floor, and I'm really just going with it. So that initial gravity's our friend in that case. We learn early in this work not to fight gravity.
And it's not pulling on me because I'm pulling against him by pulling down on the straps and like locking it to my body, right? If I let go completely, then the bottom of the straps are cooking my arms up, and then I no longer have control, and I just slip right out and be like, I'm done, I quit. Right off the stage.
This is one thing that Nate touched on that I really like, is that they're dance partners. That's what they're doing. They're working together. And one of the reasons I think Collin and Aime fight so well together is Collin and Aime really like each other. They really like to work together. And they've been dance partners for a long time. So that's what, it's real. But that's really important, because one of the aspects of this is Collin is constantly paying attention to what's happening to Aime. And Aime is constantly paying attention to what's happening to Collin, which is what makes acting so good, that listening. So that when something goes wrong, and something does go wrong a lot, particularly when you're rehearsing, but when something goes wrong, the trained fighters who really respect each other, really think of it as my partner, they can usually stop the second it starts to go wrong. And they save themselves a lot of times. And then they immediately try to figure it out. No judgment. What am I doing? How did I not? And Nate, when he was working with them, he's got like a laser eye. And he'll say, oh, your elbow's a little too, not quite high enough, not quite high enough. And that's how three people work together to create a great fight. And it's the proof is in the fact that really, and truthfully, that fight was put together in about 2 days. So that's not something I'd like to do.
You don't usually do that. We've been fighting each other for a really, really, really long time. So we know, like, we can. We know each other, so he knows when I push him this way, he needs to go that right. Like, we've been working together for a long time. It usually takes a large chunk of rehearsal.
Do we have any more questions?
Yeah, I do.
Well done.
I am wondering, my college doesn't have a stage combat class, and
We're for hire.
Well, that's what I was wondering. How could I get certified or take classes or
Nate?
train? Like,
That's a great question, and we have a good answer for it.
I discovered that this existed when I did my undergraduate, and I didn't have it at my college either, and I was really excited about it. I was a wrestler in high school, and very physical, and I wanted to use that as a resource to try and understand what this whole process of acting is, or how to develop in that way physically. And I was told by my department chair that there was this. So that should answer your question. That there was this Society of American Fight Directors. And what they do is they're a nonprofit organization, and they're not at one school or one place, but they hold workshops all over. It's a community of people all over the country trying to standardize levels of safety and ways of working so that you can walk into any theater and everybody's kind of already on the same page in terms of how we're going to dance or talk to each other physically, to have a healthy respect, to do things safely. And they hold a large national workshop you can do in the summer between semesters, and that's how I started. I went as a student and did a large national workshop. It's a 3-week workshop. And then there's smaller regional ones you can do around the country over the weekend or spring breaks that you can learn a ton. And you learn from a lot of different teachers that give you different perspectives. You learn different magic tricks, different weapons, that kind of thing. And all that information is found on their website. That's mainly where people go through. And it's an acronym for Society of American Fight Directors. And it's called SAFD. It's just .org because they're a nonprofit organization.
perfect. And then how many hours do you need, like, to be certified as, like, that you can put it on your resume, that you do stage combat?
30 hours with a certified teacher per weapon, and then you have to take a test, and there's a fight master. Are there 18 now? 17, 18 fight masters in the country, and they'll adjudicate your test. And these are people who are highly qualified. All of them have worked over 30 years as professional choreographers and teachers, and all over, and on big films and Broadway shows, and these are the people that they hire. And they come and they look at your fight and they evaluate you, and they give you, and the reason they do it is, and not from your teacher to certify you, is they have an objective look at your work. They don't know you or who you are. They just look at your performance, how you're doing it, and they try and give you constructive criticism on where you are in your process, and what you can work on, and what you're doing great at that are your strengths, and then they'll give you your certification if you pass the test.
Got it.
In that way.
When I started training, I went to the Nationals too, that 3-week workshop, and that's where Collin and I met and started punching each other. But when I went back home, the certified teacher that lived in my state moved, and so I went to SID.org and I went to the directory. There's a directory tab, and they have a list of all the certified teachers and fight directors and fight masters and where they live, which was really helpful. And even if they hadn't, not like their address. I'm gonna Google Map some. No, like not their address, but like what region they live in. There's also the regional representatives are on there too, so you can like email a regional representative or a person that it says that's in your state, and they can give you more information if you're not from here or you're from somewhere else or whatever.
Cool.
The workshops are pretty good. It's no summer arts, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot about the dance, right? I was wondering if, Nate, I gotta see you play around with Collin or something, like, just right before we go, just do that dance. Sorry to be on the stage, but, like, I've never seen anything actually so strategically listened to to as another person. Like yesterday for the master class with the dagger and how you danced around it and stuff. I know you guys don't have a dagger up there, but like, I don't know if it's...
We might not.
You don't know Nate very well, apparently.
Do you think these guys come
Peter,
around?
you gotta always have a dagger. That's the lesson, man.
Oh, okay.
All right. Are we? How are we?
We've got just a couple of minutes. We can do
How about a couple minutes and we'll end with that? Is that
Yeah,
sound okay? So I got it. What I'll do for you today is not like a fight, but it's actually what I like to use with actors to help with sensitivity. We did this as a master class and to kind of introduce you to the knife because you have a high anxiety in performance, and then working with a knife increases your anxiety. Some of you guys might have experienced that a little bit last night. And then you're working on breathing, on responding and communicating to your partner. So it's I consider it more of an acting drill than a fighting drill, and how to respond and listen to your partner on kind of a deeper level than just the gross motor movement. I really enjoy this work, and I find it very fulfilling. It helps me just with all of my regular kind of acting scenes that don't involve any kind of fighting, because I can listen to the other person, kind of their whole being or their whole body, instead of be micro-focused on just my part or what I'm doing. The only way to successfully do this type of work is to do that, so it's a good exercise. So we'll do a little work right now with the knife, and I'll just show you kind of some of the drills that we're working on last night, since, yeah. All right. We'll need to clear the chairs and swords out of the way. I'm going to get accustomed to it and relax, and then I'm going to learn to work with him. Okay, I'm not going to be as concerned about it. I'm just going to be taking in my part. I work with my breath a lot, and I'm really working on tension. I'm thinking about where my tension is, because that's what the knife cuts into. You have to hold something steady. So the more fear you have, the easier it's going to cut you. Right? We'll work very slowly, and then we can work up to some kind of medium pace work. Nothing like a real knife attack. Again, this is an exercise or a drill you do. It's not knife fighting. issue with violence is... I just want to point out the issue, or something we look at, because I spend a lot of my life looking at violence, trying to simulate it, trying to create it. I don't necessarily think it's in any way a good thing. I know that it's part of the natural world, you know? But a big part of the issue is fear and the response to fear. So when the knife comes out, or there are jerky moments, you pass that on to somebody else. We talked about this in the master class. He doesn't see the knife and I show it to him. It's going to cause tension in his body and in his mind. It's really tension in his mind and it manifests itself in tension in his body. And that's what it cuts through, right? And if you have fear, it seizes your body up and it seizes your mind up. And you're not free to think creatively, right? The only way you can do it is through relaxation. If I can relax, if I can use my breath, if I don't obsess about the knife, if he comes at me aggressively, I will aggressively try and respond, right, out of a natural reaction, right? But if I can work against that, and I can work in a place of relaxation, it's hard for him to figure out what happens, and then suddenly, instead of his aggression affecting me, and causing me to be aggressive and fight and hurt him out of fear, but if I use relaxation, then he'll start to relax, if that makes sense. So I can infect him with my relaxation and calm him down. That's kind of the goal, right? But you can only do this if you're really listening to the person, looking at their tension, responding to their body. And the idea is, with this type of work, is you're trying to bond with the person, relax them, and you sort of, instead of destroying his body, you kind of destroy his intention to fight, if that makes sense. You kind of take that away from him. First, it causes confusion in him, and then fear, and then he has forced to give over to relaxation in a way, if that makes sense. Yeah. But I guess we can do a little more work, and we'll pass it back and forth. So you do the knife, and then we'll do the knife. So Tom can do a little work on me. It makes me look too much like too strong, and my ego's not big enough. I'm just, he's got to give it back to me, right? Or I have an imbalance. I start thinking I'm something more than I am. That's not healthy, right? You see guys walk around like that all the time. That's not a good thing to spread. So I don't want to give myself too much. So we'll pass it back and forth. So I can keep my humanity in a way, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to help him. So I came in like this. A little bit aggressive, a little tension in my body, and then I noticed it started to fill him, right? So I'm listening to him, so I have to slow it down to calm him down again, so that his anxiety lowers, right? Just breathing. He breathes how I breathe, because I'm moving slightly more efficiently. I'm just a little farther ahead in this work. So I can fill him with tension, or I can relax him, right? I give him easy movement so it's easy for him to read. It's not that I'm not looking at him, I just have a soft focus, right? I don't want to fixate anything, I want to take all of him in. And it's not that I'm not emotional, don't be deceived by my face. I'm very much filled with emotion, I'm just not fixating on it, it just passes through, right? Sometimes you get scared, sometimes you get happy, sometimes you cry for a second, then you laugh, maybe cry some more. Usually that happens when you do this stripe work, like the deeper work, right? But it's just a way of learning to work and kind of be a little softer, so you have you're connected more to him, to you, to kind of everybody. It's just an exercise. It's not what we do in stage combat. It's what we do to train underneath to prepare our minds and our bodies, and then we start building choreography outside of that. That's about enough, I guess.
Thank you very much for coming out and joining us and sharing with us. It's really a joy to be able to come up here. Summer Arts is always such a terrific energy here, and it's for the faculty. We get to work with these wonderful students who are so dedicated and so focused, and we're working really hard, and they just keep coming back for more, and we get to interact with other great teachers, great artists. What a blessing. We just want to say thank you very much for everything that you guys do. And then Nate Mitchell, and the certified teacher, Collin Bressie, Aime Root, Anthony Carreiro. Thank you.